Ever hear of the famous Serenite bombs regrowing the platform on Lich King bug? And how the world first guild got their kill taken away for exploiting that bug, whether intentional or not? Well, this video won't go over that, nor other bugs that were taken advantage of to get kills. Those will be in a different video. This video will go over weird and unique bugs in fights. Bugs that made the fight annoying, or bugs that made the fight unkillable. Number 10. The Shade of Aran bug. Everyone who raided in BC will know the famous chant, "I will not move when Flame Wreath is cast, or the raid blows up." And what this means for everyone else who didn't raid BC, when Aran used his Flame Wreath ability, everyone in the raid just stood still until it was gone, because if anyone crossed its path, it blew up the raid. But did you know Flame Wreath was originally supposed to only trigger when the person it was cast on moved out of it? In a blog post by the designer of the encounter, he mentions that upon raiding the encounter himself with his guild, a year after he designed it, someone linked him the chant video about how everyone was to stand still, to which he immediately wanted the bug fixed. But since everyone had already adjusted to the bug as an intended design of the encounter, there was no need to change it since it wasn't game breaking. So to this day, the bug still exists. Makes you wonder what other boss fights had abilities that didn't work the way Blizzard intended, but they just kinda left him alone anyway. Number 9. The Keyboard Turn Glitch in Throgar. Throgar is a pretty fun boss fight if I do say so myself. If I ever make a video about some of the most unique or fun bosses ever made, I definitely put him on it. Part of the fight has you avoid trains that come out of the 4 doors constantly throughout the fight. If you get hit by one, it knocks you back and does a crap ton of damage. Usually enough to one-shot players, but did you know, for a while, you can actually avoid getting hit by the train by simply keyboard turning while the train passed right through you? Now, this bug wasn't very consistent and you'd still die sometimes, but while this bug was still in the game, you could simply press A or D and just spin slowly in a circle while the train went harmlessly right through you. Not exactly game-breaking or useful, but that's why it's only at number 9. Number 8. The Fire Glitch in Heroic Warmaster Blackhorn. Now, Dragon Soul itself had quite a few annoying little bugs, like how you'd sometimes fall to your death while jumping platforms in the madness of Deathwing fight. But none of the fights really had as many bugs as Blackhorn. In addition to instantly dying from nothing, the encounter randomly resetting, getting double charges, instant no animation charges, adds not doing anything when landing, or bombs straight up not splitting damage when they should, there was the Deck Fire. The heroic mode had fire that spawned when the ship went to certain percentages of health. What was supposed to happen was little gnomes would come down and extinguish the fires, and you simply had to make sure there wasn't too much fire so the little gnomes had enough time to clean it all up. Except, sometimes, their water didn't work, and the fire would spread to the entire deck and wipe the group. Once this was fixed, there was the visual fire bug. When the gnomes went down and put out the fire, the animation of the fire would just stay while the effect went away. What this meant was you had to pretty much watch the gnomes do their work, because sometimes the fire in the boat wasn't real fire, but just the leftover animation of what was once real fire. You could easily test fire by stepping into it and seeing if you took damage or not. Not that I'd recommend that, but it's not like the fake fire stayed forever. It did go away eventually, it just stayed for a long time after it stopped doing damage. Oh, and you know how I said they fixed the bug where the fire would just keep spreading and never go out? Well, I'm not actually sure if they ever fixed that bug or not. It was kind of a rare bug, so it might still be there. Blackhorn is the longest and most amount of attempts I've ever spent working on a boss. Not because it was particularly hard or anything, but mainly because of all of its bugs. Number 7. Lady Vashj. Despite being a pretty buggy boss, it was still doable. A trick players could do to make Phase 2 easier was to have 4 members of the core stand out of the group and log out. Then when the group would wipe and try again, the members of the cores would then log in as soon as Phase 2 started, allowing them to essentially skip Phase 2 and make the fight a lot easier. On one of the very first kills of Lady Vashj, she actually respawned immediately after being killed, with the still lootable corpse right next to her. There was a lot of controversy to how this happened or if it was an exploit, but the gist of it was that a priest used a soulstone to come back to life as the boss was about to reset. And this is where the controversy part comes in. Either because the group wiped at 1% health, or because the priest happened to res as the boss was resetting, and the boss's health would temporarily go down to 1% during this short period. In any case, the priest was able to use a Shadow Word Death on Lady Vashj and get the kill. But no one really accepted that as the first legit kill. Funny enough, when another raid did happen to get a legit kill on Lady Vashj, she kept raining poison down on the raid even though she was dead, killing everyone and preventing them from looting the boss, as you'd get killed as soon as you tried to come back in. They eventually had to get a GM to loot the boss for them. Number 6. Elegon. Did you know Allegan was the first boss to ever have 1 billion health? He's also a pretty glitchy boss, but most of his glitches were well known and not all that game breaking. All you had to do was not DPS him down too quickly while he was in phase 2. Otherwise he'd pull you into the middle of the platform after despawning it and kill the whole raid. His other glitch being the pillars that spawn in the transition phase. Normally, you just DPS them down and you're done. Only sometimes, they don't go away after you kill them. They just stay at 0% health forever. Or even better, sometimes the pillars just don't spawn. Everyone who's tried to farm Elegon for his mount knows about these bugs, as they're still in the game today. Number 5. The Lurker Below. The Lurker Below was an interesting boss. Believe it or not, people didn't actually know this boss even existed for a while. In order to summon it, you had to have a high enough fishing skill and fish up a specific pool in serpentine caverns. The fight itself had a bug that made it almost impossible to do normally. His sprout ability would shoot water out and slowly circle around the platform, except for when he randomly decided to spin around a full 360 degrees instantly and knock everyone off the platform. And the water was not a place you want to be in, as it was filled with little elite fishes that would bite you and do damage. Turns out though, if you just killed the mobs in front of Lady Vashj, the water would start to boil and kill all the fishes, allowing you to just stay in the water during the sprout and not deal with the bug at all. Number 4. Sinestra. Sinestra was a heroic-only boss who never got any testing on public test realms, as Blizzard wanted to keep it a secret. And the result was a very unfinished and buggy fight. Some of the big bugs for this fight included Shadow Orb sweeping the whole raid, killing everyone instantly, being able to spell reflect an ability that almost one-shot the boss, and the eggs never becoming killable. The fight was so buggy, Blizzard literally patched it while it was being worked on constantly. So guilds working on it found that the fight would change after a pull when the strat they had been using just no longer worked anymore. This is actually how most mythic bosses are treated today as well. Hot fixes done between pulls of world first guild attempts. Number 3. Atramedes. Atramedes was a buggy fight for sure, but he was more of an exploited fight than a hard to kill one. His bugs, though, were so well known that I thought I'd make an exception and put him on here. His first and biggest bug was during the little RP event before the boss comes out. If we did a soft reset of the fight during it, you could have infinite gongs and just stunlock the boss to death without ever taking damage. This bug was fixed pretty quickly, but the next one wasn't for months. You see, its other bug was to basically pull the boss into a little pathway into his room, and if you fought him there, you could basically just ignore his phase 1 mechanics, and save all of your gongs for air phase. Everyone and their mom used this glitch to fight Atramedes for almost a month before it was fixed. There were even top guild kill videos showing them using this way to get their heroic kills. Now they close the entrance when the fight starts, so you can't pull him there. The only way to exploit him now is to attack him in the air when he first shows up during his little RP event. You could at the time do almost 10 to 20% damage to him before he even started the fight. I also wanted to mention heroic Allegan here, since he was in the same raid tier as Atramedes and Sinestra. His 25-man version had an ability that was overtuned or bugged in a way that the best way to kill him was to leave 7 people standing outside during phase 1. Otherwise the raid would wipe. They would simply hop into the fight once phase 1 was over and do the fight like normal. The world first kill of Allegan shows this little bug in a pretty funny way. I'd recommend checking out that video. Number 2. The Unkillable Kel. Kel had a pretty nasty bug for a long time that Blizzard in all likelihood knew about, but ignored because they didn't want to fix it until their new tier of raiding was ready. During the fight, the ads you kill in phase 1 get rezzed and you have to kill them again. The thing is though, there was a bug that made it so they still got aggro while dead, so as soon as they woke up, they would make a beeline for the healers and ignore the tanks, making killing the fight nearly impossible, until one day, a tank in a higher end raid guild discovered that the legendary temporary item staff that dropped generated a little bit of aggro when you used its on-use effect. And this staff's effect didn't have a cooldown nor global cooldown, meaning you could put on a macro to use dozens of times per second. So a tank would just use the staff and spam the crap out of it to gather aggro on the dead mobs. Problem solved, right? No. After finally getting past that phase, they found another problem. The legendary shield that dropped during the fight, which was supposed to be used by a tank taking Kael'thas's Pyroblast, didn't quite line up with the cooldown of Pyroblast, causing tanks to only really be able to tank Kael'thas for a minute at a time before dying. And while this was going on, Throgar, the Darkener, would teleport around the room and instant kill players, especially Clothies. This caused the squishiest players to have to go out and farm an herb that would give you a short duration bubble to try and not get one-shotted when targeted. And it still didn't really work all that well. So while one tank went around spamming the staff macro to gather aggro on the dead adds, the other tank busy dying to Pyroblast because the shield's cooldown was too long, you had one of the adds teleporting around the room one-shotting players. Oh, and did I mention the invisible void zones? Because one of the adds absolutely summoned void zones with no visual effect. Only way to know if you were standing in one was to see if your health was going down for no reason. So, needless to say, no guild got a kill on Kael'thas in his first form. After Blizzard removed the invisible void zones, fixed the dead aggro bug, changed Pyroblast to match the shield's effect, and stopped the ad teleporting around the room one-shotting players, about 5 guilds got a kill because the fight was still too hard. It was then nerfed again later on to lower the HP and damage values, and was still considered one of the hardest bosses in the expansion until Illidan. So why is this boss only number 2 if he was unkillable due to bugs? Well, he wasn't the only one. There was one other boss who was also unkillable due to bugs, but took even longer to kill. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say there was only one other boss who was unkillable due to bugs. Hell, I don't even have all those bosses on this list. The boss that's number 1 on this list is number 1 for both being unkillable due to bugs, and because he went unkilled for so long. Number 1. Oro from 8Q40. Oro has the distinct pleasure of being the longest a raid boss has ever gone unkilled since it was available. Meaning, as soon as the twin emperors were killed, it took 87 days before the first kill of Oro was achieved. This is 1 day longer than the second longest to kill boss, Cthulhu, who was also unkillable, but mainly due to overtuning, though he did have his fair share of bugs as well. Oro was unkillable pretty much just because he was bugged, and an optional boss that most players skip to work on Cthulhu instead. His biggest bug was his Sandblast ability, which hit everyone in front of him for enough damage to take away about 90% of a geared caster's health, and also stun everyone for a couple of seconds. He would then turn to his next highest aggro target and do it again. The idea behind this mechanic was to create a small safe zone for the raid while only 2 tanks got hit. What instead happened was he would cast Sandblast 4 times before the first stun wore off, not 2. Meaning there were no safe zones, everyone got hit and stunned if they didn't die from the ability itself. To top it off, his Quake ability was overtuned and did more damage than it really should have. He stayed underground longer than he was actually above ground. His adds that spawned during this phase were also overtuned, and sometimes he just wouldn't come back up after going underground, spawning adds endlessly. All in all, pretty nasty fight. And that's it for the list. I'll be making another video sometime in the future going over all the raid bosses with bugs that were exploited, like Atramedes. If you want to learn more about Cthulhu or the Lich King bugs, just watch my top 10 hardest raid boss video.